you seeing what I'm seeing?
I didn't really see mine, but now I said that.
Do.
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of see it.
See, like,
yeah, I can.
Very clear difference.
Yeah, I can see it, but I can't see like the line.
Yeah, it's a gradient.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Welcome back. Just me and Seamus today.
Just us two.
Off camera, we've got Paige filming,
Yes.
and we also have Senny as well.
Yes. Our newest trainer.
And today we were thinking of talking about, there's a couple angles we were going to take. So, like, as trainers, what happens when maybe a dog requires more than, like, your standard program setup type of thing, whether it's, like, a certain number of sessions or your board and train or whatever. And how that kind of falls into having a really good, solid, like, support system around you if you're having to, like, troubleshoot, figure out other ways to go about stuff or to address certain issues, and then how that speaks to an even bigger issue of ego in dog training and making sure that, like, you don't outgrow the ability to still, like, be a student.
Yes.
And, like, learn, and most importantly, learn from the dogs that you're working with, as well as other trainers around you, and being able to open yourself up to new ideas and things like that, which I think speaks even to, like, with newer trainers, like Sunny, who's off camera. Even though I already told them that you're off camera.
Yeah.
How even if you've had, like, more experience, you've been training for longer, honestly, like, what I was just telling her is that her perspective of, like, fresh eyes, like, into the dog training world is, like, very invaluable and can be very useful for people that have been in it a long time. Because after you're in it for a long time, it's very easy to get jaded and to just close yourself off to certain techniques or methods, or get kind of tunnel vision on, like, how you've always done things or things like that. And the way that the dog training world continues to, like, evolve and be innovative is by, like, new people coming in and implementing new things and having new ideas, and the people that have been there a while being open to that and willing to investigate those things too.
Well, and even in situations like I'm relatively new too, like, compared to you, right? And so it's something that it's been good in situations where, you know, I've learned my way of doing things and stuff, but having me even be in that stage of, like, still constantly learning, I've found that there are certain situations where you've been able to kind of, like, help me through these things where maybe in a way it's something that you've only used once or twice, but it's something where you've kind of had to, like, look back in your playbook almost and kind of, like, bring this stuff back out to where it's, like, kind of new, fresh, like, fresh to you again. So I think to that point, it also helps those that are experienced kind of bring those things back, you know, a little bit, and remind them that it still can be useful, even if it's not your normal go-to move. You know, it's something that you can still use. So I guess starting first with the extension of lessons, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah, those rare dogs where they just need, like, more than the standard program size. Because, like, our programs here, we just have 2 options. So we just do a 4-week board and train or 10 private sessions. And the way that David structured that way is because, and he's talked about this on his podcast, but, like, he didn't want to do, like, varying levels of things because he didn't want to get stuck in a position where it was, like, now we're, like, piecing apart and micromanaging, like, this should be your expectation if you do this program and this program and this program, where it's like, if we're going to train the dog, we just want to train the dog. And be able to, like, do it properly and give them the support that they need all the way through, like,
regardless of their issues, the extent of their issues, you know.
Like, if your dog, every dog's starting point is going to be different. And so that determines, like, where you can get to in that matter of time. So it's like, if you have a dog who has no behavioral issues and just needs obedience, 10 sessions may seem like overkill, but you're going to have like a insanely well-behaved dog
Yeah.
by the end of that, that's fully off-leash reliable, whatever you need to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And then say you have a dog who's got really severe behavioral issues, that gives us a nice wide berth of time to be able to address all that stuff. But there are those rare dogs where you get to that 10th session and you're like, obviously we made progress, but like I'm just not quite happy with like where things are at that point.
Yeah.
And then
you don't feel comfortable quite checking that box off as like, okay, this is resolved or whatever, or controlled. Yeah.
Whether it's the dog or even the humans,
mm-hmm.
you don't feel comfortable that they're like confident in it yet.
Yeah.
Quite yet.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and then in that case, honestly, we're very dedicated to our clients, so we just go until we feel like we don't have to go anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
And sometimes either that, right? And that's what I kind of like, if we ever start doing more of those follow-up supports and everything, I like to let the owners know that, okay, this is the support that we're giving. We're going to keep doing it until you feel comfortable, right? Because sometimes we can look at the dog and we can work with it and be like, okay, I know how to handle this situation. So for me, if it were my dog, I feel like this is good. But then you look at the owners and they're like not quite, like you were saying, confident or like understanding maybe with how to deal with it without us being there, right? We're still there to support and do these follow-ups, but we obviously can't always be there. So it's always like, I always let them know that like, you have to let me know when you think this is good, you know? Because I think that goes a long way too. Again, I think being the trainer, you can kind of look at this and be like, all right, yep, this is how you do it, right? And this is exactly what you need to do. And then you hand it off and the owner's like, I get it, but not quite the same when I go home, right? And so that's where that extra support kind of comes in, I think. A lot of the times where, or at least where I find myself having to keep doing these follow-ups is just like these smaller little things where it's gaining their confidence or having the dog kind of understand the generalization of you need to do this with mom and dad too.
Yeah, because it could be something as simple as like, now they just need time.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the procedures in place, it's effective, it's working, but now we just need time to continue doing it, and then I'll see you in a month.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Type of thing. Like, if anything comes up, let me know, but I'll see you in a month, keep doing all of this, and then we'll see where we're at a month later. Type of thing. Or it could be something that, we're still pretty on top of stuff because maybe we're still having to troubleshoot and find what works.
Yeah.
And I think as a trainer, especially, it can easily get kind of frustrating to be like, how can I not find something that's working?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And like, I think that's where it's so important to like stay very humble and open yourself up to feedback from other people and having like a good network of people that you trust that you can talk to.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, so this is a situation, this is what we have going on. Like, how would you approach this? Like, what would your philosophy be? How would you address these issues? What would you have them do, not do?
Mm.
And just trying to figure out. And that's what's hard, is that it's such a delicate balance when you're working with those clients of guiding them through like the problem solving and troubleshooting process while making sure that you can feel like you might come across as like incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where it's like,
because you might have to try a couple different things.
Like, I don't know how to fix this.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's like, it's not that I don't know where I'm trying to get to and all the different ways to get there. It's that I don't know which one's going to work.
Yes. Right.
So it's like you have to try all of these different options. And along the way, the owner has to have the ability to trust you to try all of those different things. And I think that's where you have to have a really good pre-existing relationship with the client that they're willing to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's built on just very good rapport, really good progress, like overall, that they can look back and be like, okay, so this one thing we're still really struggling with, but overall, like, we've seen
Yeah.
an insane amount of growth and stuff. And a lot of times, as the trainer, when you're in that position, you have to reference back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, you know, not only for the client's sake of keeping them, like, hanging on, but also, like, for yourself of being like, okay, I'm capable of figuring this out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know how to train dogs.
Well, and it's also, I feel like it's important, kind of going off of what you're saying, but letting the owners see some sort of growth, right? Where it's like, even if you hit that 10 sessions or the end of the 4 weeks or whatever, and the issue still needs a couple follow-ups, tune-ups, proofing, whatever, right? You need to show them that there is growth, right? That you're at least heading in a direction where, yeah, we might need to work together and get you comfortable, and the dog kind of still proofing on that one goal that we're trying to achieve. But I've learned that just like small little increments of doing it, like with one of my dogs that I was working with yesterday, their main goal was having their muzzle training so that they could do grooming, handling, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a really good one, and then we kind of even talked about this in that meeting yesterday, but being able to get the muzzle on was just half of the ultimate goal. So getting them comfortable with putting the muzzle on and having the dog be comfortable with putting the muzzle on so that they could achieve that ultimate goal was huge, right? That was the progress, but we still needed to make sure that the whole point of doing it was to achieve that goal, and it ended up working great yesterday. But
using the tub like this.
Yes. And same with the nails and everything too, you know. But that's totally fine, you know. If it's something where as long as there's that progress, and they were really happy about it, and so it's something that, again, took an extra couple little follow-ups to make sure that they were comfortable, as well as the dog. But it's really just kind of like building on to these small little steps, you know. I think a lot of times some clients can get a little like impatient almost. It seems like, you know, like they want their dog to be good. And so, and they have that misconception of just like, well, we did these sessions, it should be good by now, right? Put that much work in. And a lot of times that just isn't the case, right? Whether it's they just don't have time to work on it at home in between sessions, or you know, for the board and train, we just obviously working with me, not with the owners, they have that time that they need to catch up, really, you know? And that's what I always try to remind the clients too, that like on the time of the send home, we do like 3-hour send homes when they come and pick the dog up. They've been doing it for 3 hours. The dog's been doing it for 4 weeks. So clearly, right, it's you gotta have time to get comfortable and catch up to that. But it's something that I think that that's why we do the follow-up support, and we are constantly there, not letting them just feel like they're left to deal with their dog now on their own, right? I think goes a long way for them, because like you were saying, with building that relationship and that rapport with the owners, I feel like is a little bit easier sometimes with the one-on-ones, because you're doing it progressively. And we've talked about this before too, I know, but with the board and trains, I don't really start building the relationship until the send home, right? Throughout it, you know, I'm giving calls, updates, and stuff like that when we're talking, but really building that relationship and kind of figuring stuff out with them is really important. But it's something that, you know, it does take time, especially with certain dogs that are a little bit more troubled.
Well, and it's sometimes like there's pieces of it too where it could be that maybe we're problem solving and like troubleshooting a non-negotiable issue where it's like we have to just like get over this type of thing. How dare you?
I know. It's the most annoying ringtone too.
Such a dad ringtone. Or it could be that, and you know, having the owner kind of hang on and trust you through that process of trying to figure it out. And sometimes you also run into situations too where like just the bare minimum like upkeep for a certain type of dog to maintain a certain type of lifestyle is difficult for the owner to like keep up on.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, when things get the most difficult.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's like maybe this certain dog will function great in this household as long as you continually enforce these basic like lifestyle parameters of like no furniture, no jumping up on people, no like you need to feed them in this specific way because they have resource guarding issues, or you know, certain stuff like that. And over time the clients just struggle just maintaining those same boundaries, and then you see the same issues continue to resurface. And that's where it's a little bit more nuanced, because it's like we have the pieces that work.
Yeah.
They've already been figured out. We know what works.
We've had that success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's not like we're trying to find other ways to make this work. We know what works. What do we need to do to make implementing what works easier then for you at that point? And sometimes it is just like a incongruent, like they're just not compatible.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that's when it's a little bit more of a difficult conversation. But there's just a lot of different dynamics that happen when you have dogs that are, you know, going beyond like your normal parameters. There's so many reasons why. Then you also get the rare people that aren't taking the time to work on it.
Yeah, right.
And it's almost like you're seeing them week after week, or, you know, at a couple months or every month or so. And you're like, okay, so how did the walks go for the reactivity? Oh, well,
I haven't really
still
able
really
to do
nervous
it.
to
Or,
walk them, you know, stuff like that. And it's like, I get it, but
how is that going to
we're
boost your
never gonna
confidence?
fix it unless we do it. You know, like you have to get out there and do it.
Yeah.
And that's where I have one client where I told her, I said, you're not allowed to do another follow-up until you've gone on 4 walks. And I've kind of like set a standard. Yeah. Because like I need you to do it. I need you to try it. I need you to do it. We've done it in lessons. I know you can do it. You've seen the dog do it with me. I need you to do it now. And I've given her the parameters of what works. You know, we know what works. She's just got to go out there and implement it. And I empathize. You know, it's overwhelming. It's scary. Her dog used to redirect on her with stuff like that.
I was going to say, especially in situations where it's traumatizing.
Yeah, like I totally get it. But we've got to set him up with a muzzle. We've got all the things in place to make sure that it goes well. And so now it's that pivotal moment where it's like either we do it or we just don't. And then we kind of live in this limbo of like, I just never walk my dog again. Yeah. And if that's what people decide to do, you know, that's their own decision. But I can only get you to a certain point, and then you kind of have to decide like, am I going to do it or not type of thing.
Right. Yeah. I found that can be kind of more of a frustrating point for being the trainer and stuff, is just like, I can give you the tools, I can work with you, I can show you. Yeah. But again, I can't always be there. So for the people that are like, well, you know, my dog just does perfect when you're around, you know, but then when we go home, he's messing up or he's pushing or whatever. It's not because of just me. Right? Yeah. It's because of the structure that I lay in, and that the consistency that I have. And then just trying to figure out where can I help you get to that point as well. And sometimes it is just that lack of confidence. Too. Yeah.
Because it's like when I take a dog, like I will figure it out. Yeah. We will figure it out. And I think the honesty factor too. Like I'm working with a client currently that like, we haven't figured it out yet. There's still issues that are recurring, and we're troubleshooting and we're finding different things, and it's frustrating. This is like the first dog in a very long time that I'm like, I can't figure it out. You know, and I've talked to a lot of different people about it. Obviously with you guys in our meetings, with David, with other trainers even outside of the company, just trying to like get as much information from as many different people of like different ideas to kind of work on. And I mean, I try to be as like open and honest with my clients as possible of like, we're going to try things. Yep. You know, like I can't tell you exactly what's going to work because I don't know.
Right.
You know, and it's not that like we're giving up or that I'm saying like, oh shucks, guess this is just going to be this way forever. Like we will keep going until we figure out something that works, but.
And I think that goes a long way too, kind of going back to the point of like you saying like, well, sometimes, you know, we might think like they think we're like incompetent and can't do it, but the fact that we're not giving up has to mean something. You know what I mean? So I think it's something that's like, if we're like, all right, well, we tried this thing, it didn't work, so sorry, you know, it would be one thing. But to be like, all right, well, that didn't work. Let's try this next week and this thing next week or whatever and keep going until we find it out. I think the determination for sure goes a long way. And again, that's our job, right? That's what we're here to do, is to be the problem solver, is to try to figure out what we do. The point of the owners is you got to just carry it out, right? If we give you the tools, you got to use them, you know?
Yep.
But I think it just takes time, and sometimes it's the owner, sometimes it's just the dog, but.
Yeah. And it's hard because some of the issues, it's really hard with certain issues because you may not be able to recreate a scenario where it's guaranteed to happen to try things. So it's like with the dog I'm working with right now, none of the issues are happening when I'm there.
Yeah.
So it's like I can't, and there's no way in the lessons for me to recreate it in a way like we've tried, where it's like we're trying to make the issue come up and it doesn't happen.
Yep.
So it's like, it's even more frustrating because I'm like, I'm just hearing like a secondhand, and it's not that I don't trust them, but it's like, I wish I could see it.
Yeah.
And also, I wish I could be there to handle it and kind of know more intuitively by seeing it what would work to fix it.
Well, and sometimes, you know, it's for the client's point of view, you know, it's everyone learns in a different way. Some are more visual learners, some are more hands-on learners and stuff like that. So, so it's something that I think for the client too, it helps in certain situations like that. I've been working with a dog in that similar situation right now as well. And I guess just while we're on the topic, what do you do in those situations? Is it something where it's just like you kind of just give them a couple different ways to like, hey, when it happens, try this?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it now, is like I've given them an option that we're gonna do, and I want them to try it and then recreate the scenario if we can and see if it made a difference.
Okay.
Because there's no way to measure if what you did was successful unless you can recreate it and see if there was a change in behavior. You know, because it's like, if the dog, because that's what lets you know if what the feedback you're giving is effective, is if you actually see a change in behavior. But because his display, so like he displays aggression towards one person in the house.
Okay.
And so it's like, but it's sporadic when it happens and weird.
Yeah.
So it's like, and he's not a dog that is neurologically unstable, because it would be sporadically weirdly happening to everyone.
Yeah.
It wouldn't just be one person. But it's like, sometimes she'll come into a room and he'll start growling and snarling at her. And it's weird because we've gone from like, the dog was, it's such a weird relationship dynamic. I'll give you the whole thing in a nutshell. So when they were dating, this dog belongs to her husband. Okay. When they were dating, dog loved her, had no issues. The dog even lived with her for a period of time while he was like working and something, where he's maybe out of state or something like that. But lived with her, no issues. Anytime they were together in the same house, like even staying overnight, doing stuff like that, no issues. So even cohabitating for short periods, fine. They get married, they move in together.
Put a ring on it.
Complete shift in the relationship, where the dog wanted nothing to do with her, very aggressive towards her, very possessive over the husband. Even with her dog at that point, whereas before the relationship had been fine, just like a complete switch. And had actually bit her a couple times, things like that. Then we started training. We eradicated the actual biting behaviors. So this dog has not bit her or done anything like that since. And we seemed to make quite a bit of progress where the dog was basically avoidant of her.
Okay.
Didn't like her, wasn't affectionate, but would just kind of like do its own thing and stay away from her, which was fine.
Which is better than the alternative.
We ran into an issue where, because the husband works long hours, whatever, she's like, I have to take the dog outside, I have to feed it, I have to do all this stuff. So we needed to work on the dog being compliant to her commands so she could at least handle the dog to get him out, take care of him, bare minimum stuff, right? So we started doing that. The dog was fine, got up to where he was compliant. She was still having to give corrections for commands because it's not like he wanted to listen to her. This dog will not take any positive reinforcement, nothing.
Just from her or just in general?
Just in general.
Okay.
Yeah, from anyone. And it's not an overfeeding issue. It's nothing like that. Like, he's just a very, like, anxious dog.
Yeah.
So then it has had a very unhealthy relationship with the husband. Like, the first lesson, I took the dog, like, 3 feet away from him and just screaming. Like, blood-curdled screaming. Okay? Like...
Is it a shepherd?
Australian Shepherd.
Oh,
yeah. So then.
Sorry, Sunny.
Yeah. So then we got the dog at least compliant, that she could do things with him. And when she was handling him and doing stuff, she could even call him over and pet him. Like, he would never be overtly aggressive or anything like that. It was more so just like invading space.
Yeah.
If the husband was around, food, resource guarding, stuff like that. So then we hit that point, and then all of a sudden the aggressive behavior started to come back again. And so I'm thinking, okay, maybe what's happening is he went from avoidant to now I'm being forced to be around her and do all of these things, and he's getting frustrated. And so now he's acting out a little bit more. So then we stepped back and we said, okay, you're just going to basically go back to like, you don't mess with me, I don't mess with you type of thing.
Yeah.
Right? Get the comfortability back up again. And then now we're just seeing it more sporadic where it's like she'll be in a room, he'll come into the room and start growling at her, which is a behavior that we haven't seen in a very long time.
It kind of sounds like something where, I mean, not exactly like it, but when a dog first comes for a board and train and they come for resource guarding or aggression, right? They'll come in and not show anything for the first like 3 or 4 days, and then once they start getting comfortable, then it really starts to show a little bit more. So I wonder if that's kind of like similar.
Yeah, I think he's going through these weird waves of like bold and brazen, and then he's like avoidant, and then it's just going up and down.
He's like getting comfortable, so it comes out, and then they get on top of it, and it goes back down.
But
it's cool.
What's odd is that it's like, but nothing really that they've been doing. Like, they're very consistent people. Like, this woman is just on top of it. Like, anything you tell her to do, she's doing.
So it's not that they're getting lazy with it, and it's allowing them to get comfortable.
He's fluctuating, but they're staying the same, and so I can't figure out what variables are, like, affecting his behavior at that point. Corrections, while they were somewhat effective in the ways that we needed them to be, when he's in an aggressive state, they're not going to do anything. If anything, it just pisses him off more at that point. So, we've been implementing different types of corrections for things and stuff. And like I said, what's frustrating is that I can't get a scenario set up where he does it to her when I'm there so that she can try something.
It's just frustrating for everyone.
See what actually his response is and stuff. So anytime I'm giving her, okay, we're going to try a pet corrector, or we're going to try X, Y, and Z, a bonk, or even whatever, it's like I can't see her do it. I can't see it happen. And even for her, the snarling, the growling, and all of that kind of stuff only tends to happen if the husband isn't even there.
Right.
So it's like this very weird one-off situation.
Yeah.
And it's obviously, it makes her very uncomfortable and stuff like that, because he has bitten her before. And so she has that in the back of her head. like, it's not a situation
hard
where
thing
I
to get
feel
past.
like she's very unsafe around
Yeah.
this dog by any means. He's just being a dick.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's unacceptable. And
He's
it can't happen
just
anymore.
doing it when he can, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. So that's where it's like we're having to give, like, I'm giving her these different options to try, and then I'm getting like the secondhand accounts of like, well, I did this and this happened, and you know, then we tried this, and then we couldn't get him to do it. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just one of those scenarios where it's taking a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's just no other way to. It's taking a long time because the behaviors are so sporadic that it's like you can only wait for them to happen somewhat organically.
Mm-hmm.
You can try to set them up and maybe it'll work, but you almost have to just wait for them to happen.
Do you ever, so maybe not in this case, but in a situation where kind of the dog I'm working with, is there kind of having weird like resource guarding situations too where he'll cower kind of in the corner of the kitchen that just so happens to be right where his food bin and his food bowls are, right?
Yeah.
And the husband's totally fine with climbing over him and doing all that stuff because it's right to the basement stairs as well. And he'll kind of like stop and like look at him, but he won't growl, he won't snarl or anything.
Yeah.
But there are situations where he'll get real nippy and stuff. As well as same thing, he goes and plants himself in the living room right by his toy bin, right by his bin of toys or whatever, and he'll do the same thing, right? He'll like, and they say it's just like out of nowhere. They'll be in the kitchen or something, and he'll kind of walk in the kitchen and like stick himself there. So it's not even they're asking him to do something. He gets scared and he gets over there.
Yeah.
He just kind of corners himself and just kind of like waits for it to be happening.
It's like a reinforcing behavior for him where he's like waiting for someone to come over so he can
do it, right? So we did that, right? We went to their house and we were kind of working on it a little bit, but we didn't really see any outright aggression, right? It seemed like he was a little kind of like weirded out by me being there almost, like uncomfortable, but not reactive in anything. And I know you were kind of just saying that you want to be able to see it to address it, which I agree. But is there ever to you? Is there anything where? Sorry, is there anything where to that point where you think that because there isn't a reaction that
it's not that big of a deal?
That it's not. Yeah. I guess I'm trying to find the right words to say it, but yes, basically that.
Could that behavior just stay stagnant like that forever?
Could you not seeing the problem mean that it's not a big problem?
Sure. Yeah.
You know?
Well, is it happening, like, is he reacting aggressively to them around that area, like when you're not there?
Around those situations, yes. Well, yes. So that's why we started doing the follow-ups again.
Okay.
And so it's something that it has been more recently, and they're not sure if it's, I mean, again, it sounds like resource guarding the food, the toys. It sounds like it's resource guarding the owner as well, because they've had situations where the dog and their neighbor's dog get along so well or whatever, but then there's been a couple occasions that he was saying that like him and his little daughter have been out and the dog just goes like berserk at this neighbor's dog, right? Yeah. To the point where he's gotten nipped and stuff trying to break him apart away from the fence.
Okay.
So it's something that I haven't really been able to see it, but we've been kind of working on it and just laying in those commands and stuff, and they haven't seen anything since. Yeah. So I don't know if that's just something.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's plenty of times that like addressing like a certain behavior, you can almost like indirectly see improvements in other behaviors. Mm-hmm. So it's like if because of the new strategies you implemented or the new structure or whatever, you're not seeing it display itself where he's guarding that certain area, then yeah, to me I would say then okay, it's just not a problem anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, if it represented itself. Mm-hmm. You know, my issue with this dog is that he just keeps doing it.
Yes.
He just keeps doing it.
You're playing all your cards and nothing's working.
Yeah, so it's like And again, it's not that these people aren't consistent. They're absurdly consistent.
Yeah.
Like, very, very structured and routine. And, you know, we're just kind of having to go through our options and see, like, what's going to stick and what route we have to take. But he's just a complicated guy. So,
that's frustrating.
Yes. Yes.
For everyone, again, it's for everyone involved. Like, and that's, we can sympathize with those owners, you know?
Yes. And it's there's just a whole nother level to it because it is an intimidation factor, you know? So it's like, you also have to take into account, like, making sure your client feels comfortable doing the things you're having them implement.
Yep.
You know, and that they don't feel like they're unsafe working with the dog. So I feel like my next, depending on how things go at this point, I've been conversing with her over the new technique we implemented. I mean, you know, I told her, I'm like, we can always implement him wearing a muzzle for periods while you're by yourself with him, you know, things like that. And also, I'm wondering if, like, doing more spatial pressure work with him could be useful, of getting him yielding and responding to, like, space and yielding space a little bit more. I've had good success with that in the past, of teaching dogs that when, like, I come into your space, you move.
Yeah.
Type of thing, and it helps them mentally kind of seed a little bit with those types of issues. So
especially if it is more that intimidation kind of thing that he's
yeah,
trying
like
to
he
implement.
just bullies her.
Yeah.
Really. So, and that's one of those things where with like David's last podcast that he was doing, where he like went very Jeff Gellman. Did you listen to it?
You were telling me about it. Yeah.
Where he's like, just get it under control.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's talking about dogs that are just dicks, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those situations where it's like, you just have to, we have to get it under control. He needs to know that what he's doing is unacceptable, inappropriate, wrong behaviors. And my concern right now is not like, oh, how does the dog mentally feel? It's stop.
Yeah.
Stop doing that.
It feels like being a dick. That's what it feels like.
Exactly.
So,
you can't be doing that.
right.
Yeah. So, and ultimately his life will be so much more peaceful.
Yes.
If we can get everyone to live harmoniously together.
Because he doesn't have to do it. He doesn't have to do
No,
like that.
he does not have to do that.
But,
at all.
What else?
I mean, I think I think what I appreciate in the environment that we've created here is that when we have issues like this and stuff, like, we're all very open to, like, brainstorming it all together. And there's not this sense of, like, oh, if I'm coming to you or asking people's opinions on, like, how to do this, it's not perceived as, like, oh my gosh, they have no idea what they're doing type of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's super important and a very good culture to have, because you don't want to feel like asking for help would read as, like, you're incompetent with, like, within your workplace. And that's something that starts at the top down. Yeah. You know, and I think
that is very important, that it rolls over, obviously, to the clients as well, where it's like, we need to make sure that they don't feel that way, you know?
Yeah. And just, like, a very safe environment where, like, there's no judgment with it.
Yeah.
Because I've never been concerned that, like, going to you or David or whoever and being like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Do you have any ideas? Would then hinder me in my workplace, because you guys would be like, oh, we don't trust her anymore. She can't even solve this fucking problem. You know?
Right.
So I think I really like that about here, that there isn't, like, a lot of ego in the environment, and that we're able to, like, brainstorm that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really, it's helped me a lot, you know, especially from, like, coming into this with no prior training, you know, this being kind of my first place that I've been learning. I think it's helped me to grow a lot quicker, that it's just like I could come to whoever and just still learn something, you know.
I just burped, and I feel like they're going to hear it on the mic. So I just want to announce it, that I'm sorry I just burped.
Yeah. Own that. Own it.
On that note, sorry, Seamus, I didn't want
That's
to
all right.
interrupt you. Called myself out.
That's all
We
right.
had tacos for lunch because
Yes.
it's Paige's birthday.
Yes.
Happy
So go
birthday,
down.
Paige.
Should we sing? No, I'm just kidding. We'd only do it if Bridget was here still.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, I think in reference to that, like the moment that you think you've seen it all and you know everything, I think the longer you're doing this, yes, those weird cases that like get you will be like way more few and far between.
Yes.
And when they do arise, for the most part, you may have to do a little bit more troubleshooting than normal, but you probably have like your options set out. You know what I mean? But you never, ever, ever want to, the moment that you think there's nothing else to learn, like you've completely tanked your entire career.
Yeah. And
it's just not how it
and
works.
speaking to clients, if you ever go to a trainer and they only have one way of doing something,
Yes.
then you need to go look somewhere else because there's never just one way to do something.
No.
Solve an issue.
No.
But,
and I'm really open with people. Like I'll tell them like, you know what? Let me bring that up at our next meeting.
Yep.
And let me like see if anybody else has any ideas, any other thoughts, whatever. And I think that the clients appreciate that too. That like, not only are you, yes, you're working with one trainer, but you know that they're outsourcing like their knowledge to everybody else as well, which is super helpful.
Well, and I kind of look at it as like with every client and their dog, it's like we are becoming like a little team. Like we have to work together, right? I'm the trainer. I'm working to teach you everything.
Yeah.
But you, in the same sense, have to like help me out by doing it, and then and we have to have that open communication where you can't feel scared to tell me that you're struggling with something or that a new problem's coming up, because then we can't solve it, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I always try to tell the clients is that like we're all in this together, right? I might have other dogs I'm working with, but when it comes to you, when you are in front of me and we're doing our follow-up or our send home or whatever, this is our time to be a team, right? And it's really important that I think that they understand that as well, that you are dedicated to doing that.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That you're not going to give up on them.
Yeah, like we're
Whether
very
it's-
invested.
Yes, whether it's just small little puppy stuff or whatever, they're still doing the little puppy mouthing, or to the point of like resource guarding and you're scared to go in the room, right? Or scared when they come in the room with you.
Yeah.
You know, which
Their
happens.
success is our success.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you have to like adversity and problem solving and like puzzles if you're gonna do this long term. You have to like that. When you encounter like a difficult situation, it can't just be like, oh man.
And dreading to deal with this.
Exactly. Like you have to get some sense of enjoyment out of like being challenged.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a very big piece of this is like, yes, when I get these cases where we're struggling, it's because a lot of my like, oh man, is more so based in that I want the clients to feel successful and to feel like, you know, they're getting the help that they wanted. But I also, from a trainer perspective, recognize that like, this isn't an invaluable experience for me because I will find the solution.
Yes.
I just need to figure out what it is. And once I do, I'm going to have yet another tool in my belt to be like, okay, if this ever happens again, now I know how we can go about addressing it more efficiently the next time or whatever.
Yeah, I just need to have time.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
This was kind of Paige's topic idea a little bit. And it was a good one. Did we touch on everything? Do you have any added questions to ask?
So, both shared some stories about certain dogs. And with difficult dogs, what gets you through knowing that everything is going to either be solved versus when it's not going to be solved?
You're right, we didn't touch on that. Well, I guess maybe we did like very vaguely when I said like the general upkeep just isn't congruent with their lifestyle and then you have to make a harder decision. To me, I think, so I think that can't be solved is probably the only time I would say like a situation can't be solved is if you have like a neurologically unstable, unpredictable dog. I think beyond that, if the owner is willing to do it, you can pretty much make most things work.
Yeah.
It just may look a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I was saying, maybe you have a dog that like can't be on furniture because every time they're on furniture, they're a dick about it.
Yeah.
So, no furniture. Or a dog that needs to be on a bed stay every time people come in the house and needs to be there for 15 to 20 minutes because initial greetings, they just do stupid shit.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you have a dog that when you're out in public, they need to be muzzled because you can't control the environment. And if a human, a kid, a dog runs up on them, they're a bite risk. So anytime they're out, they're on muzzle. And maybe that's forever, you know? I think that in those situations, it's not that, it's hard to draw the line on like, how far can you push something to continue making progress? And then where is the line where like, this is the glass ceiling of like as good as it's gonna get?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a nuanced thing to talk about because you don't know until you hit it,
Yeah.
I feel like.
And I think to the opposite spectrum, it's sometimes especially with dogs with more like serious stuff, you know, like jumping, barking, all those are like pretty general. Every kind of dog does it, especially when they're young and stuff. But to more the point of like resource guarding or reactivity for some reason or whatever, I think it's also kind of hard to say sometimes that with dogs with severe reactivity like that it's completely going to be resolved too, right? It's always something where it's I think it's fair to say you should always have in the back of your head of, okay, just because I've been successful for a month, I'm not going to go take my dog to a playground and let all the kids run up and pet my dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's something that, you know, I think you definitely can have things well managed for sure, and the training be super positive and get those boxes checked off. But I think with certain things too that, I don't know, and this is just my personal opinion, you might have a different opinion, that it's like something where to say something is fully resolved can be kind of hard with certain situations as well, you know?
No, I agree. I think that it's easy to look at a situation maybe and be like, oh, like the dog is reformed. Like we've made this 180 turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's important to look at like, that's probably because of the procedures and the lifestyle changes that you've made and continue to upkeep. Yeah. And if those dissipate, then the behavior very easily could regress back.
Yes. So I guess we're kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah. So I think it's like the core of like your dog's personality, I think is what dictates your glass ceiling. Mm-hmm. So for that, I mean like, if you have a dog that genuinely just has no desire to meet new people, not a lot of desire, like I'll use my own dog for instance. So like Lumos's glass ceiling is that he doesn't like strangers and he doesn't like strange dogs. And can I introduce him and get people and dogs into his bubble and his circle? Yes, but I will forever have to do it in a very specific way. Mm-hmm. There will never be a day where I could just let him go up to a random person, they could pet him and him like it.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
That's just him.
That's just him. Mm-hmm. And I think you won't know that about your dog until you get to a point where it's like, okay, we have them fully under control. They can be out in public. They're doing great. But when they see people and people approach, you don't see that body language that's like, oh my gosh, I'm happy they're here. I want to see them. Which you would see sometimes with dogs. Like if you have a dog that goes from like just being nervous and overwhelmed to having confidence, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I do like people.
Yeah, this
I
isn't
like
as bad as
hanging
I
out.
thought.
This isn't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Then, then it's like, oh, okay, cool. So we do have a dog who actually is very social.
Yeah.
They were just overwhelmed with fear and anxiety and all this kind of stuff. Lumos is not that. He's not actually social. He's just a dick.
He just doesn't,
And so
could
for
care less.
him, it's like he is safe. He can, everything like that. But when it really comes down to it, the line I draw for him, because to me it's just safer, is that like no strangers are petting my dogs, and he's not meeting strange dogs.
Yeah.
And like you guys have seen, like since I've been here, like he loves all of you guys now, because I have a very specific way that I have him around people and get him adapted to that and everything. So I think that the only way to find, like Paige was asking, if there is like a limitation in a dog, is to just like keep going until you find it.
Yeah.
That type of thing. And then evaluate, is this a limitation you can live with?
Mm-hmm.
Are these management procedures that you have to have in place to live a safe, successful life with your dog, are they attainable for you? Can you do it? Can you maintain it long term? Or can you not?
Yeah.
And then you have to decide, depending on what the issues the dog has, whether you rehome it, whether you behaviorally euthanize, whatever it might be at that point, which is unfortunate, but sometimes those are the situations that you're put in.
And I think it's also, again, rewording it, but finding a way to continue progress until you kind of hit that plateau. And then, and then seeing from there, where does that plateau kind of go into where your lifestyle is, right? Exactly. Is it something that is manageable? Is it something that is better than you thought it would ever get? Or is it something that is just, it's not going to work, right? And I think that's where we kind of have to kind of bring that discussion back up if need be, or maybe plateau and find something else, right? Okay, we've made progress to this point, but we're not quite making clear communication, or the dog's still having this problem, or the owner's still having this problem, whatever. So let's try something else, continue progress. All right, maybe we climbed up a little bit more. Now we have been able to be manageable. Okay, then let's just have that success, right? The worst thing that could happen is it regresses, right?
Yeah.
So it's something that I think that going from there, I think it's important to, I in terms of limitations, I think it's important to just kind of keep your eyes on the prize, making sure that you can kind of do what you need to make it manageable, if that's your goal. Right?
Yeah, well, and like even now, like with Lumos, while his limitations really haven't changed, and the procedures I use to introduce him to people and stuff like that haven't changed, the time frame it takes for him to get comfortable is drastically shorter than it was. So even in that aspect, like I'm seeing progress. I've seen a ton of progress, but it's because I've been so consistent with all of that up until that point, of making sure that there was never room for a regression or for something to go wrong along the way. So to me, the only thing that like isn't workable is like a neurological issue.
Yeah, I would agree.
Beyond that, if an owner wants to make something work, I will figure out a way to make it work for you. And if making it work isn't what you want to do, that's fine too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's fine.
But at least we can say we did it. You know,
Yes.
we ruled out all the other possibilities of
Yes.
this dog isn't just a jerk. There is something neurologically wrong with this dog. Right.
Yes. If you come here for training, like you can be 100% confident that like we will literally exhaust any and all options. We're
through all of our trainers too.
Yes, we're not limited to like, oh, we are strictly e-collar trainers, or oh, we're strictly this or strictly that. Like, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
And we're open to doing whatever we need to, to find whatever is going to work for you and your dog, whether that's typically falls within our usual methods or not. But yeah. Did we kind of answer your question?
You did.
Hopefully.
Perfect.
Cool.
Cool.
All right.
Any other thoughts?
I think I'm good.
Same.
All right.
Bye, guys. See you next time.
Wish Paige a happy birthday.
Bye. Happy birthday!